Ladies and gentlemen, YouTubers around the world, welcome back to another Dune Awakened video. Today we're finally going to talk about PvP. Now, before we get started, there's a couple things that I'll just say about PvP in this game. There's a lot of contention, there's a lot of people on both sides fighting back and forth. Some people like it, some people don't. It's a very weird system that they've implemented in Dune, which is kind of different from other survival games. Normally, in most games, there's going to be PvE and PvP servers. In this game, it's all PvP, and they've been trying to address this problem by rolling back some of the more hardcore PvP systems in the game. It's great if you're a casual solo player and you just want to farm and get to the end game content. But yeah, it's not a great system, I would say, in terms of like, why should I PvP? Why should I do any of that? What's the point? There really isn't much incentive. But I'm sure a lot of you out there are wondering, what can I do to escape from PvP if it starts happening? How can I survive? Or how can I defend myself? Do I want to be a, person that turns around and fights when I get attacked? Do I want to run away? Do I want to beat up on the bullies of the server? Or do I want to be the bully? Whatever it is, like, you can do whatever you want in this game. I think it's fun to kind of, since there aren't that many great systems in the end game yet, I think it's kind of fun to kind of RP or kind of establish some boundaries for yourself. Like, what do you want to do with the PvP? For me personally, I'm a Harkonnen, and I try to shoot down other enemy Atreides ships, and I also won't try to thumper anybody's ship. I will just try to cause the worm to come without a thumper. I'm going to be talking about PvP in terms of like, you're out in the spice field, you're trying to maybe survive a little bit better, trying to not get rocketed down by the orthocopters. There's been some changes made recently which are going to make it a lot easier for you to avoid PvP if you want to. Before we do a talent build, we want to talk about what kind of weapons are important, what are the top tier weapons that you need to have in PvP, or want to have. You can experiment, you can do whatever you want really. There's lots of different ranged weapons in the game, but there are some very important ones, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at what I have here. So this is, unfortunately, or fortunately, mostly unfortunately, I would say, the most important weapon in PvP, both for scaring off enemy orthocopters, and also in on the ground. This weapon is just impossibly powerful. Especially when you're outside on rock formations, this weapon will just do everything for you the ancient way. The reason being is it has homing missiles, right? You can lock onto either a player or a copter, and you can fire at it, and the missiles will be homing. So unless they go around, some kind of line of sight to dodge the shot, they're gonna get hit by it. There's no way to really dodge it. It's just gonna hit you. So yeah, that is it, guys. Unfortunately. Right now, you can only get this weapon, it seems, through the weapons vendor if your faction wins the Landsrad. There doesn't seem to be any other way to get it in the game. Maybe they'll add it in the deep desert someday, but as of today, it has never appeared outside of that. So you want to have this item. It's important. Definitely recommend it. That's the number one thing, right? You want to have. If you don't have it yet, just keep in mind you're going to have to manually fire your missiles at people. Probably won't use them against infantry, just if it gets really close copters. You probably still want a regular rocket launcher just to shoot copters if they get really close to you. But it's not going to be nearly as important, right? It's not going to be as helpful. You're going to find yourself at a disadvantage, for sure. Now, outside of that, there's different ways, different approaches you can go for. You can try to close the distance and get into melee range with things like Weirding Step and things like Crippling Strike. For the most part, players are going to try to keep their distance from you, especially if they have an ancient way or they have ranged weapons. They'll be able to do that. You're going to want to manage your mobility, your stamina, your shields. Those things are going to be important if you're outnumbered or not. You're going to have to rely on mobility to get around the rocks, to escape players and fight back. But my personal preferences for weapons right now, I've been testing out Dune Watcher a little bit, which is a pretty good gun. It does a lot of damage. It poisons players through shields. So it does hit pretty hard. Only problem with it is that they have this big scope, and if someone's moving like they should be, moving around, it's going to be very difficult to hit them with the Dune Watcher. The sniping in this game is a little wonky. You can see that right now it seems to be working just fine when I zoom in, but I've seen a bug where it doesn't actually zoom where you intended it to. It'll like scoot to the side, and you'll aim somewhere else. Maybe it has something to do with being close to like a wall. Like here you can see it's doing it now, but it's a lot of zoom, right? And it kind of narrows your field of view a lot. And if somebody's moving around, it's gonna be hard to hit shots. So alternatively, there's another weapon which I would recommend you start off with, especially if you don't have the Dune Watcher yet, which is the Regis triple shot repeating rifle. You can also get the tier 5 version of this gun, which is also pretty good if you can't get the tier 6 yet. The 5-finger triple shot rifle. Both of these are pretty good. They do a lot of damage. You can see here the tier 5 does 270. Tier 6 does 358, which is our sniper rifle actually technically does less damage, so you might want to consider this one instead. It doesn't do as much poison, I believe, even though it does say poison coated darts. For some reason, the Dune Watcher, even though it says it does less damage, I believe it does hit a fair amount harder than the triple shot. But definitely recommend this gun as well. Either one of these will be great for taking out players who, if their shields go down, or if you just want to start poisoning them, doing some damage to their health pool. Very good weapon. Next up, I'm going to talk about the shotgun here. The Perforator is what I have now. It's the hardest hitting shotgun in the game. It doesn't do too great through shields, but it does do some stagger, which is great. If their shields go down, in close range, I like to pump this out, especially if you've been mailing, you're kind of running low on stamina. Switching to a ranged weapon is always an option if you can't escape, or you're trying to finish somebody off. Shotguns are great. There's also weapons that go through shields. This is probably one of the harder hitting weapons in the game as well. The Disruptor pistol that just came out this week. The problem with these is that they have a delayed shot mechanism, so if you're really good at aiming, you hit your shots. If somebody's not really moving that much, this can be a great option to break their shield. If you don't have perfect aim though, it's gonna be tough to break through someone's shield or without a heavy melee attack. You can also use the drill shotgun to get through shields. The problem with that is that players can simply dash away to remove the drill shot and it will stop all the damage. But that also can be helpful if you're with a group of players, cause them to burn through their stamina, right? By repeatedly dashing to avoid your drill shot damage. You can obviously you want a melee weapon. I do recommend using a faster weapon such as a dagger or rapier over the longsword that we used in the PvE video. The reason being is that just this has more reach. It's fast. It attacks faster, so you'll be able to get those hits in a little quicker, even though they do a little bit less damage. Like Halleck's pick here is a great one because it does the poison damage. This is probably one that you want, right? There's also some decent daggers in the game. I don't have them yet. I haven't tested them out, so we won't talk about those. Now that we've covered a lot of the weapons, though, let's talk about, I guess we'll just go ahead and talk about armor. You definitely want to go light armor, I think, in most cases. We're also going with Idaho's Charge and IX Core leggings to increase the amount of stamina and to increase the amount of our battery pack, because we want to be using a lot of the suspensor belt. The reason being is a lot of the PvP in this game is going to occur when you're on a rock island fighting against either other players on the ground or orthocopters in the sky, and you want to be able to use mobility to your advantage, and you're going to be burning through full suspensor belts. If you go out with the into the desert with the intention of looking for PvP and fighting PvP, you definitely want to bring a few of these full suspensor belts. They're very important. Also, of course, the Ultimate Shield 5, Power Pack 6 are going to be the key items there. Definitely have those at the very least, right? As for armor, you can rock tier 5 if you don't have tier 6 yet, but we definitely want to have the tier 5 versions of these pieces here to increase the amount of power and stamina that we have, just to increase our mobility. And then, of course, I'm rocking Pincushion. For the boots, if you're going to be on a spice field, you definitely want to be wearing some kind of soft step boots. I highly recommend those. If you're going down into a research lab, you don't need this, of course. If you're going to be on the rock formations, fighting exclusively, you don't need this. But if you're ever considering that you might be on open sand, I highly recommend using these boots, whether it's just you're out spicing or even just trying to PvP on the spice fields, you definitely want to have these. Very important item, right? Now that we've covered most of the weapons that we're going to be using, oh, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about actually, which is the las gun. So if you're going to ever like raid a base, if you're ever going to try to raid somebody's copter without destroying it, if you want to be a nice person, instead of using a thumper, you can just las gun down their storage and take what's inside. Or you could las gun, parts of their copter. Will destroy it probably a little bit faster than rockets do, but it's just a preference. You don't really need a las gun unless you're planning on raiding people's bases, but I definitely recommend it. And we'll talk about that, of course, now that we're going into the talent build. So real quick here, I'll show you my current talent build. This is not the one that we're going to be talking about exactly. I'm testing out range damage and trying to maximize the amount of damage that I can actually deal with certain abilities. And the purpose of this is kind of to test if I can one-shot players who are unshielded, such as on a spice field. But if you guys want to take a look at it, that's what it is right now. But now I'm going to be going over to our online talent calculator and talking about what we actually want to be doing starting out in PvP. All right, so here's our calculator. I'll just try to skip through, instead of going one by one through these different trees, I think I'm going to talk about like the most important stuff that you want to get first and just go out, and we'll branch out from there so that you guys know what to prioritize. So the first things you want are Sugar Wire. I would recommend probably 3 points in this, especially out for PvP. You always want this one on your bar. This is your most important ability. You're never going to swap this off, I would say. You always want to have that mobility to use to, grapple off a rock or whatever it is, to just, launch yourself into the air, to pursue somebody down, or to escape yourself. That's going to be always on the bar. As far as the rest of the most important abilities, you definitely want to have your stamina and your shield maximized, right? So we're going to go fully into rerouting. We're going fully into overcharge. This is going to max our shield out, make it as powerful as possible. And then I believe here we're getting some field medicine as well. It's going to be very important to have, healing on ourselves. We're 100% going to be using Crippling Strike most of the time if we're ever doing any kind of melee combat. This allows players to, if they try to dash away, which they'll often do in a panic, you can have fully drain their stamina bar. 100% disciplined breathing, always on the bar. And then optimized hydration, max that out. General conditioning maxed out. The other thing we always want to max out here, I think, is going to be our vitality, our healing. So this is going to be maxed out. Then you can put 2 or 3 points in these other ones. I'd recommend 3 just to keep yourself alive. This is probably something you're going to have on your bar. And there you go. That's probably like your, we'll say this is really important too, right? Getting all 3 points when to sprint to escape as well. That's going to be key. We're not going to always have this on the bar. Obviously, this is, very dependent on what's going on, what we need to be doing. That's like a key ability, right, for escaping. So there you go. That's really pretty much, I think, the main things that you need to always have in PvP. Some other things you might really want to have are going to be like maintenance on your weapons. And this is probably like the next tier down is like having these gunsmiths and field maintenance, as well as your mechanic abilities. Your mechanic abilities are going to allow you to be fuel efficient when you're in your copter. Basically the way this works is if you need to escape from PvP, you want to fly as high as you can for 2 reasons. One is once you go above 750 altitude, you're going to start burning fuel really fast and overheating. Other players trying to rocket you, if they go up to that height or above, they're also going to overheat instantly if they shoot rockets. So, that's how you're going to escape. And also, if you want to get an advantage on another player in a copter, you want to be able to be above them typically. You kind of want to be a higher elevation so that you can rain down upon them. It's a little bit easier to shoot your rockets that way on someone who's below you rather than someone who's above. So that's pretty much it for like the really important ones. For the rest of these, we'll just go through tree by tree now and talk about it. So depending on, we talked about a little bit about the weapons, what kind of weapons you want. Right now, I'm obviously investing a lot of range weaponry with my PvP, which I recommend. I definitely also recommend going fully into this heavy weapon damage. If you have an Ancient Way, you'll definitely want to get that. If you want to test out a scattergun like my shotgun, or if you want to test out your disruptor pistol, you can go into these. If you want more range damage, if you're testing a sniper build, I believe that's in the next tree, but anything here as well. Actually, I forgot to mention, we definitely want 100% invest into suspension dance and maybe at least 1 point into efficiency there. You could probably go more points here if you really want to fly around a lot, which I like to do. So we'll definitely go all in there. The rest of these abilities here, we're not going to be really utilizing. You could test out grenades if you wanted to. I haven't really tested them in PvP because people can just run away from them. You know, unless they're stuck there, they're probably not going to be very useful. As for the next tree here in Mentat, this also is dependent on what kind of weapons if you're using pistols, rifles, whatever. You can go into where you want. If you want to be able to repair your gear here, you can get some points, but not really important. I would say the gear is probably the least important of repairing and maintaining. Whereas your vehicle repair obviously is going to be pretty high priority since it's going to be taking rocket hits. Likely scenario, right? As far as these other abilities in Mentat, we're not really going to be utilizing. I'm personally using I think headshot damage and some of this stuff here for my sniper testing. You can get it if you have spare points, but not really a priority. I would just recommend speccing into whatever type of weapon you're currently wanting to try out and just go from there. It's pretty open-ended. You don't really want any of these abilities. And then in this tree, we already talked about getting the rerouting. The rest of these, if you want to do a hybrid build, I'm currently not. I kind of, at this point, decide if I'm going to be focused on farming 1 week in the deep desert or not. And then if I do, then I'll get these points in vehicle mining and in compaction. If not, then I won't bother. But I think compaction is probably something you could always take if you want to be able to farm efficiently. It's not bad, right? Now, as for the rest of these, I would definitely recommend putting a point here. This is a ability that is kind of nice to mess around with. I've been testing it. It seems to be helpful if you need to get some air when you're on the ground. You can launch up with this. It doesn't beat a Sugar Wire. Sugar Wire is better, of course, but if you have this as well, you could definitely float around in the air. And I've heard that you can utilize it to de-aggro a worm. If you have worm aggro out in open sand, you can use this in combination with your suspensor belt, assuming it doesn't break. And you could try, basically resetting the worm if you don't have any other options, if you're in a tough situation. I haven't personally done it, but you might want to just get that point there just in case. Now, you don't really need field vision driver, you just need the pilot one. And then as for the rest of these, I wouldn't recommend. You could get, a lot of the passives for prescience are pretty good. You can definitely get them if you're already at the top of the tree, but if not, don't worry about it. Like this one, that's pretty good. And then, so let's see, we went through Planetology, Bene Gesserit. So we talked about Bene Sprint already. I always want that. If you want to go into melee damage, you can do that. You can go into Manipulate Stability if you want. I personally like this one. Right now I'm testing headshot damage, I think is my final one, but for most people I would say you could do this if you want to go into melee damage. If you stagger somebody, you do extra damage against them, so it's pretty decent. Now you could also, if you're getting into certain fight, you could spare some points unspent in your tree, and if you think you're going to be fighting against sniper rifles, against Dune Watchers or repeater rifles, this might actually be pretty useful for you. I haven't tested it, but it might be worth it as far as that goes. And then none of these other abilities obviously we want Weirding Step. That's a high priority one I forgot to mention, which allows you to close distance on players who are nearby. Definitely recommend you have this. This is probably going on the bar. If you're fighting on the ground, you're definitely going to be using this as well as this. And then, Sugar Wire. But this third one can be optional. You can choose whatever you want. Here you could test out, I've been testing out this gravity field grenade. This is kind of nice too. Basically what it does is kind of slows players down. They get stuck in there and they it drains their shield, their power, so it's great. If you need to create some space, if you need to escape yourself, or you just want to slow a retreating player down, you can throw this out there. And especially if you're down in a research lab, it's going to have probably even more effectiveness there because they can't just go around it, right? Now, that's pretty much it for these abilities. I think we haven't talked about Swordmaster if you want to invest some points here. None of these other abilities would things I really recommend. I've seen players use some of them, but for me, I don't think they're very useful. They're just kind of a gimmick or kind of an ability you don't often see, so that might be helpful if someone doesn't expect one of these abilities to come out. Maybe you can get an advantage, but I haven't seen a whole lot of activity with them. Nothing really here. You can definitely get some poise reduction here if you want. This is very helpful actually. When you're getting staggered, it can reduce the damage that you take by players and their abilities if you're getting surrounded or something. So pretty useful. That's pretty much it. You probably want, like I said, the passes are always nice to have, but right now our required level is 187, so I've obviously taken probably too many points for most people, even myself. I'm not even this high level yet. I believe about 185 or so. So you're gonna have to pick and choose what you want to do. I would just recommend testing out different weapons, speccing into them for a week or a few days, and then if you don't like it, switch it up. If you do like it, maybe keep practicing and see if it works for you. Just based on what we already talked about, obviously you want to have an ancient way if you can, and then whichever kind of sniper, repeater rifle, disruptor, shotgun you want to use. You can even use SMGs. There's a pretty good one out there. I don't have it yet, so I haven't tested it, but there's lots of ways you take it. Kind of PvP is your own sandbox to play with and figure out how you want. Just make sure power in your power pack maxed out, you have your stamina and your health maxed out, and then from there, whatever you want to spec into is basically the advice that I have for you. Always use this, always use this. Anything else you want to do, highly recommend this. But anything else you want to do is really up to you. One thing I forgot to mention is you always want to have Suspensor Dash probably on here, so you can kind of pick and choose. Keep this, and then this will be your rotator. You can use the health like we have here, or you can use the manipulate instability, whatever you want for that third slot, but make sure you have Suspensor Dash on there as well, just to keep yourself alive. Very important. So we've talked about all the abilities, talents, everything you need. Now the thing that you need to focus on is what do you want to be doing? Like I said, for me, I completed most of my farming. I'm focused more on being an aggressor in certain situations. Even though I'm oftentimes solo in the desert, it can be a huge disadvantage to being a solo player. You can be overwhelmed, but you would be surprised by how easy it is to take fights at a disadvantage in this game. Main reason being most players are focused on PvP in their orthocopter because you can shoot your rockets so quickly, you can take out players on the ground very fast, you can destroy other copters, especially if you have the numbers advantage. However, they have made some changes recently to the rockets, which have increased their weight and increased the cost to make them. So I've been experimenting this week with other techniques of engaging combat without using the rockets. The cost to make them is, it's negligible. I think it's just a matter of farming, right? But the weight, having extra 50 pounds in your inventory or more, if you want more than one stack, 100 pounds, it's going to add up, and you can't really carry that much in your scout, right? Getting around in the deep desert, you're going to want to use your scout because you could pocket it mainly because it's a little bit faster, more maneuverable than the assault still, even with the changes that allow this assault to escape. If you're going to be just farming spice, you can try your assault. It's a little risky, but if you're looking for PvP or thinking that you might engage in PvP or have to escape PvP, highly recommend just using your scout because the scout is pocketable. If it gets damaged, you can just go to the rocks, pocket it, and save it. Even if you die, you're going to have your scout still, right? If you're on your assault, you can't pocket that. It's going to get destroyed by enemy players. If you get overrun and beaten down, there's no way to salvage it, right? Maybe you can land on the rocks, come back later and get it, but it's possible that you can't make it to the rocks. It goes down in the sand, gets thumpered, or there's bugs where players can push copters from the rocks into the sand and then thumper them. So if you don't want to risk losing your copter, I definitely recommend having a scout and being very careful. As soon as you go down in your scout, you want to go around a corner and pocket it. Make sure that you can't get rocketed while you're in the process of getting out of your copter and pocketing it. That could be bad because then your copter will be vulnerable, right? You are going to lose about 10% durability on all your items in your inventory, your weapons, your armor, anything you have equipped or in your inventory is going to lose like 10% durability when you die, when you're killed, when you're not just downed but actually killed. So that's always going to be a limit on how much you can revive and fight again, right? You got to be careful. If you're dying a lot, you probably want to disengage from the combat. It's just a matter of what your goals are, right? Like, so we talked about what you want to do. The thing you should know about PvP in the deep desert is if you're looking to attack other players, if you're looking to raid them and take their stuff, the fact of the matter is choosing to engage in PvP is almost never worth it. From a resource management perspective, you're almost never going to come out ahead. Yes, you can raid other players' spice, from their storage on their copter if you take them out. But realistically, you can easily farm, with your compactor probably way faster than you can successfully raiding other players' loot, right? I mean, yes, it can be a little bit faster if you're successful and no one's fighting back. Sure, that can work for you, but for the most part, you have too much of your inventory space dedicated towards your PvP weapons that you're never going to really come out ahead. You're always going to be more efficient just trying to farm stuff if that's what you need right now. So definitely don't recommend PvP for players who are just still looking to farm their tier 6 items. It's more of a thing you'd go out and look for once you already obtained those items and have maybe some resources to craft backup ones when you need them. If you have a mishap, get eaten by the worm, or if once all your durability is gone and you need to replace the weapon or the gear or the copter. So if you guys do want to use the rockets, there's a couple things about them you should know. When you put them in your inventory, you have to be careful because they will disappear if you remove the rocket attachment. So the way you resolve that is just pull them out before you detach it. Sometimes they'll disappear in here and you'll have to fire one rocket to get them to reappear so that you can move them back into your inventory. If, say, you get out of your copter or you pocket it or something, they'll often disappear, so just keep that in mind. They aren't gone, you just need to shoot one rocket first and then they'll reappear and you can pull them back. The other thing is with aiming the rockets, they are slightly homing actually. They're not complete skill shots, even though that's important. When you use the free look ability, that actually points where they're going to shoot. So if I just fire straight, you'll see them just go this way. But if I hold down the right click and say I want to hit this rock over here, someone on this rock, they actually do veer off to the direction that you're looking, as you can see here. So I think it's underrated that you need to be above your opponent at all times. You can actually, if you flick upwards when you're firing your rockets, you can easily aim them up as well. So if they're too close to you, obviously it's not going to work. They do arc out a bit before they fire, but you can fire them any direction you wish to, depending on where you free look. Now, I guess if you just don't hold anything down, that's going to move your copter, right? But if you do right click, you have full access to free look, and you can aim your rockets wherever you want without moving the scout itself in a different direction. This week, like I said, I've been trying to fight more and more without using the copter rockets because they're so heavy now. And actually, as you can see here, if you fly your copter into the sky, you can just hover. If you have your vehicle backup tool already equipped and out, you just jump out of your copter while you're hovering without moving. Most of the times we'll be able to pocket it and then use your suspensor belt to float in the air, pull out your ancient way, and fire off a rocket or two at a nearby copter. And most of the time, if you do this successfully, players in rocket copters actually aren't going to be able to engage you very well. Floating in the air, it's very difficult for them to hit you. And there is some things that go wrong. This is a risky maneuver, of course. Sometimes when I do this, my copter will start falling before I am able to pocket it, so then I'll just have to go down and pick it up. If you're going to do this technique, I definitely recommend that you don't do it over quicksand, you don't do it over an active worm on the ground, because if you fail to pocket, obviously that's going to be potentially very bad. If there's a lot of players with rockets around, they can definitely predict where your rocket's going to fall or where your copter is going to fall, and they could definitely take you out. So it's definitely risky, but I like to, practice these things and figure out how to maximize the gains on them. You know, I've taken fights against very large groups of players, just me solo versus, 3 or 4 players. Maybe they aren't actively trying to hunt me and kill me, but they know I'm a threat, and they're hanging out guarding some of their friends' spicing. There's ways to engage and to force these players to waste rockets, especially now that rockets are so heavy. A lot of players won't have as many, so you can get them to waste their rockets while you're boosting around them. Or you can start pummeling all of their copters with your ancient way by getting out of your own copter and causing them to take damage while you don't really take any. You can also, like I mentioned before, you pocket the copter, shoot a couple rockets. You can even resummon your copter mid-air, and then you can get back in it. Sometimes it takes some time, and this is also risky. Players can definitely rocket you. I've definitely had a funny experience here, as you can see, where I got downed mid-air after kind of messing up my copter summoning. I fell off and I had to shiggle wire back. And in that time, these players I was chasing, they came back, looped back around and started shooting at me and actually downed me on top of my copter. But fortunately for me, I got a little lucky here and I was able to revive myself, get back in my copter, and escape. So there's a lot of different things you can test here, guys. It's kind of an open playground. I'll definitely be posting some more PvP videos of me doing certain techniques, engaging other players. We have some funny stories coming up. I have about 3 friends that I play with in this game right now, who are sometimes on, and when we all get together, we can pull off some pretty hilarious moves on other groups of players. So we'll definitely be posting some of those, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.